Hi, this is Sandy. This week we're going to take hatch marks one step further. We've always worked in the positive. That means we fill in the color. This week we're going to work in the negative. We take it out. But we're using hatch marks the same way. So last lesson, we took a picture of a teddy bear from Build-A-Bear and we divided it up to figure out how we would sketch it, and we used hatch marks to do all of the fill-in on the inside. So this week, we're going to go a step further. We're going to turn the page, start with a blank piece of paper, but I have the picture of the Build-A-Bear with me. Now we're going to dissect it. This is India ink on a board, and it's a whiteboard. We're going to use scratch art to make a picture. There's different ways of doing this. The board, India ink on the board, is more expensive. So if you don't want to go to the expense of that, there's also a filmy paper. It's harder to work with, but it basically is the same thing, where we scratch the design into the paper. So now we've got to figure out what design we're going to scratch. Well, we know that our board is this tall. We could do the whole face, or we could do a part of the face. We're also going to be working in the negative, whereas that sketch we did, it was putting the pencil and the ink on to the paper. We're now going to be taking it off. So let's figure out what are we going to draw? I don't want to do the whole bear, but maybe just a part of the bear. So maybe if I go here, I could just do the eyes. Or maybe I could just do one eye, one side, and let the other bear, the right side of the bear, go into the dark. I kind of like that idea. So what I'm going to do is put my board down, draw around it, so I have the exact measurement of what I'm going to be putting on my board. I'm going to put the board aside. The board is very sensitive to the oils on your skin, so you don't want to touch the board with your fingers. You don't want it to get dirty, and you don't want it to get scratched. So be very gentle with it. All right, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, all right, what am I going to do? I like this part. Let me get a marker down here so you can actually see. I like this part right here of my bear. Okay, now I've got to get this onto my paper right here. So let's figure out how we're going to figure out exactly what we're putting on here. Remember last time I went with divide the box in half. Divide the box in half and in half. And boy, this better be square so you know it. There, that's better. And in half. So in half of my, if I were to put this much on my board right there, that's where I would go. But I wanted to go a little bit wider. So I'm going to go an inch more. There it is. But I'm still at 1/2. If I were to draw a line here and here, his eye is basically at 1/2 of my board. So I like that. So I'm going to mark my half marks right here. I didn't measure. I just looked and saw, that looks like 1/2 and that looks like 1/2. That means that's the middle. So my eye is going to go to this side of the middle. So I'm going to draw my eye in, and I'm not going to be real precise here. But here's an eye. His nose is over here. But let's figure out where on our box that nose is. So let's make this 1/2. So I drew this 1/2 of this mark, and look, that nose ends right at that 1/2. So I can come over here and say that's 1/2. So here's his nose. And his nose ends where his eye begins. Okay, now his mouth, the nose goes down the middle, comes out this way, goes that way, and over here is the other eye, because this is where the nose ends, here and here. What I'm doing in my sketchbook is getting an idea of where I'm placing things on my board. So let's go over here and let's figure out where the head is. So the head is a little bit smaller than the whole box. So we're going to give it about right here. And the ear starts at the end of this eye. So that's about right here. And I'm not even given firm lines, just dotted lines. Now, the ear over here, if I draw a line, starts at the end of that eye. So here's where it's going to start here. We're going to come out here like that, and we know that's our eye. And our face goes down like that. Now, I might make a few changes here, but I know when I go to put it on my board where I'm putting things. You can draw on your board. It will leave a slight mark. I cannot erase it. If I erase it, well, I did erase it. Some of the black came off. I don't want that to happen too often. So try not to erase on your board. I can do it this way. I could also put the board underneath here and do a little light tracing, because it will It didn't. It did, but it's very hard to see. So I can't show you where it did, but I know I can see it on here. So I could trace it on there. But now we're going to need some tools. You can't have markers, pencils, or pens, because nothing's going to show on this except this white would show. So let's get our tools. Okay, I've got my tools. I've got a small screwdriver. It's a flat head, but it's sharp. I've got an even smaller screwdriver. Flat head, nice and sharp. I've got a stylus. The only thing about this stylus, I want to get my paper underneath here, is it will scratch into, but it doesn't hurt it. Same way with this. It'll scratch into it, but if I don't dig into it like that, it's not going to hurt it. This, I put it all the way through the back of the paper, so I don't want to dig in. I just want to scratch the surface. Then I also have a straight pin. Any straight pin will work. gives a nice, real fine point. This was one that we did last year, and I'm just using this paper to show you. But I'll put the link up to that art lesson so you can have some more scratch art. Okay, our board is a little bit different than the paper. You will be able to dig into this board and score it, but you really don't want to. What you want to do is just remove enough of the ink from the top of the surface. You don't want to dig into this. Okay, so we are going to put this underneath here, and I'm just going to get some guidelines as to where things go. I might just poke a little bit. Let's see, I think I'll go with the stylus, because I know I want my eye there, and I want my eye here, and I want my nose. I'm going to raise it just a little bit, and I can figure out where the mouth is, so I'm not putting that in there. I'm just going to put the top and the bottom of the head just to give myself a nice guideline, and I'm just telling myself where the cheeks went in. When I look at this, it's very, very hard to see it. So now I'm going to have to find it, and I'm going to use my pencil and just go over it a little bit. All right, where was that? Just going to give myself an idea where those ears were. The eye was right here, here, nose, and I'll figure out where the mouth is. But I basically want the same amount at the top as the bottom, and I've got it a little bit off, so I'm going to raise everything up. Okay, let's start by doing some of the fur around the head. Remember that we can't put black back in, so we have to leave the black exactly where it is. And basically, the black right here tells us where the ear is. Then we have a little bit of black right here, but we've got a lot of black right here and right here, and a lot of black right here. Then we've got black here, here, and here. So we want to make sure that we don't take that black out. But around here, you can see that it isn't quite black. So we are going to start with his head. And remember our hatch marks. Basically, we're using a contour hatch mark, which is this or this. And we just keep doing it over, because we want it to look like fur. So that's the hatch marks I'm using to get this fur started. Now, I'm just going to scratch lightly. We aren't seeing any of that. So let's find there it is. I'm not seeing it, so that's too fine. I'm moving on to one of my screwdrivers. There we go. I don't want to take all of it off. I'm using it as a flat screwdriver, like this. I'll show you with the bigger screwdriver. and more on the tip of it. I'm just doing hatch marks. Some of the ink is coming off a little more than the others, but just hatch marks. Okay, a light hand. Remember to go with a light hand, and we're just going around the outline basically, so we know, see the hatch marks I'm making? We know where our ear is. I'm not coloring. I'm crisscrossing these little circles where the hair is, or not circles, but lines. This is the outside of my ear. Once I get this stuff in, I will be able to see more of where my bear should go. When I'm working this, I really want to have a paper underneath my hand because there's oils on my skin that will make this harder to work and will put a sheen on this black, and we don't want that. Let's see, we go all the way down here. I'm not making it real with a smooth edge because our teddy bear was a hairy teddy bear and he had curly little pinks. So we want to keep with that. And it's time for me to come back up. It's very hard to see our original markings. So you got to do it in the right light. There we go. That's his ear. Now his side of his cheek. It's even hard to see my hatch marks here. So if I were to draw this on the paper, what I'm doing is I'm giving it these, and then I'm coming over there and I'm going over, giving it a C, coming over here, giving it a backward C. This is my hatch marks that I'm making. If you'll notice, all of those, that ink is not coming off. I don't want it all to come off at the same level. That's what gives us our shadows and our texture. Remember, you don't want to go all the way to the bottom of the page or the board, because if you do, you're not going to see it in a frame. This will have to be framed with a glass top, a lot like a watercolor. You're not going to need the mat around it, although the mat does make it look much more finished. Okay, here's half of our bear. Now let's go in and let's look at the eyes. I'm going to turn this over so we can all see the eyes. They're sort of round, but they do have a spot in them that's pure white, or not pure white, but very white. See those there? We're going to have to make sure that we put those in there. The eyes also have hairs that go into them, but this hair here goes away from them. So when we give our marks, we're going to try and remember that. The bottom of the eye here, the hair goes away from it. And we're going to leave the hash marks quite far apart, really. Okay, and this one over here, we're just going to give it a little bit here to know right where it is. It's at the edge of the nose. Okay. Now, along the side, we can just give it a regular little mark. It's still dark here though, so we don't want to take all of that away. Now the eye at the top, the hairs go away from us. So we could actually turn our board and make the hairs go away. Oh, I took a lot off that time. All right, there's one eye. There's the other eye. Okay, the nose, the same thing is happening. It's darkest at the edges. So, but all of the hairs go away from it. We're not going to touch the inside of that nose yet. We're just going to tell it where it is. And the nose, if you'll remember, was the insides of the eyes. That told us how wide the nose was. So I'm going to turn my board. Just give little hash marks. Going to this side, there's the inside of the eye. That means this nose goes all the way out here. Turn it over so I can get the board. It's easier to pull the hash marks than it is to push. So let's pull it all out. There is the outlines of our teddy bear. I'm going to work one eye with you and the nose with you, and then I'm going to just work it myself, because this takes a long time to do all of these little hash marks. Okay? So let's think about this eye. We know that there's our eye. We know that there is right here a white spot. If you look at it, this is dark on the inside. But the rest of this is just as dark. Okay? So now we've got to figure out how to put this on so that we're going to make it look dark. All right, so let's go back to our eye. And the first thing I'm going to do is mark where that spot is on the eye. So I'm going to come over here and scratch it right where I think that spot is. Just hatch marks. Okay, there's still black in there, but I want it to stay there for a minute. The next part I'm going to do is this part right here where the eye is another shade of dark. And to do that, I'm just going to give straight cross hatches like this. This time though, I am actually going to go over that spot that I just went over. So now we've got very light, then we've got light, and then we've got some darkers in here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get that little bit more shading here. I know where that eye is. It's right there. I don't want to take all of that shading or all of that black out of that eye. So I'm going to stop right there. We can always go in and take more out, but we cannot go in and put more in. So once we get it to a point where you know what it looks like, that's where we stop. To give an idea, this is your fur. It's still pretty dark here, so I don't want to take a lot of this black color out. Let's start on the nose. We'll come back to the eye. The nose has that wider area right here, the lighter area. Let's go ahead and give it some cross hatches there to get some whites in here. And then maybe give it some cross hatches up here, kind of farther apart. If this is where his fur is, so we're going to come out here. But be careful down here that we don't take away all of that black. Just when you think you've totally ruined this, go to a different spot. Work on something else and see if you can't, it'll start coming together. Okay, now I'm going to turn the sound off, and I'm just going to work, and I'm just going to play. This is how we do it, and let's just have fun with it.
For next week, right?
Yeah, we're not doing one this week. Red. Okay, I'm at a point now where I messed up. You can see where I messed up. I don't like that. But I left it alone because no matter what I did, I'm not going to be able to put it back. So I'm going to go on to the rest of it to see how I do. I figured out that that's the way I should do an eye, not the way I did it. Okay, so now we're going to look at our bear and we're going to say, what is the highlight part of this? So I'm going to use my white pen here. And let's look at where the highest light is. The highest light is, and you can't see that white, so let's go back to the Sharpie. The highest white is there, and here, and I'm going to color this in so we can see the difference. And then over here, that's the highest white, the lightest part. So when we go to shade and shadow our bear, we want to take as much out. I would start there to find the highlights on our bear. So let's go back to our bear and let's find those spots. Okay, there's his eyes, between his eyes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on doing another crosshatch right in the center. And see how that works. That's pretty good. I have actually said now that this comes away from the face. And it's got a highlight on it. So I'm cross-hatching this again. So I've pulled that forward. Now, we've got to pull this forward over here. The way to do that is let's do some more crosshatch marks. I'm still using the contour marks. I'm not going parallel lines. And I'm not taking all of the black out of this. If you go and you look at this now, you still see there's black in there. I don't want to remove all of that black. Now, do you remember those darks that I showed you on the ear? They're here. They don't have to be that dark. I can bring my cross-hatching down here a little bit. So it's not quite as dark. It's still darker there, but it's not, it's got crosshatches in it, just not as many. Wherever I do that and I take out a lot of the black, it looks like this is lifting up. And that's what I want this to look like. I want it to look like there's a nice little curl right there, lifting right up off that page. But when I do it, I really don't want to remove all of the black. Okay, this has on his forehead right here. And remember how I said that we were going to let this side go into shadow? I've still got crosshatch marks over here, but I don't have as many as I have over there. Now, remember how we did this over here? We left it nice and black, and we took things around it. That's the way we're going to use this, do this mouth. I know where my lines should be. And I'm just going to take, and I'm going to leave a lot of space in between these crosshatch marks. And on the other side, I'm not going to go directly to it. But where I did that, you can see a line. We're going to do the same way on the line up here, the curve of his lips. There's the line. I might give him a little more here. And here's his mouth going up. underneath it. Just crosshatch. Once I get it to where I know I'm going to go ahead and finish the contour cross-hatching, but leaving that one area nice and dark. Now, since I said I want this side to shade, to go into the shadows, what I'm doing is I'm spacing my cross-hatching out. I'm still scratching the same, but I'm just giving it more space rather than very close hatch marks. See the difference? These are nice and close together here. And as I go over here, they just get farther and farther apart. Okay, I'm going to now, once again, speed it up, and I'm going to work it at a pace that I can handle, and you can watch along. Okay, a lot of this I finished off with a straight pin because the lines were much finer. And I can do these fine lines and not take quite as much of that black out. Now, if you notice how I did that eye, I like it much better than how I did this eye. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't put ink back on this paper. I can take a Sharpie though, and I can decide what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. And I can just kind of come in with my Sharpie and fill in around that eye. Now, I think it's a little bit too much there, so I'm doing that. But remember, I can't take this Sharpie back out. But what I can do is just go in and put in the parts that I want to make sure were in there. You can use Sharpie. You can use your pigment liners. It will put some of the black in. It will correct your mistakes, but only on a board. If I were to try and put Sharpie here on this film paper, it just wipes everything off. So you can't put Sharpie on the film paper. So only if you're working on a board can you make your corrections with your Sharpie or your liners. Okay, so this has to go in a frame. It's a board, and it has to have It doesn't have to have a mat around it, but it does have to have glass on it. Because if you were to try and dust this and your rag had a little bit of oil on it, it would change the look. There are ways of finishing this off where we could add ink and paint on top of this, but that's for another lesson. So we are now done with our hatch marks. You can see the reason for having hatch marks. It works in the positive, like we did last week, and it works in the negative, like we did this week. See you next time.